What would Kevin do if he succeeded with Project Stigma? Now, this is a question I wouldn't dare think about due to the very grim implications, but let's imagine a hypothetical scenario. Main trio, dead. Side characters, gone. Honkai, well, they're also dead, but Earth is basically a desolate planet at this point. What would he do as the last human on Earth? Can't imagine it? I wouldn't blame you. Unfortunately, we don't even have to imagine it because someone else succeeded. Let's travel back in time 250 million years ago and meet a woman named Vita. She lived on Venus and she loved it there. That's why it made her so heartbroken when she saw that the cocoon of finality came and brought Honkai along with it to destroy it. Every scientist, including Vita, did the best they could to fight against these monsters by using the power of the Sea of Quanta. They even gave them a name, the Abyss. Even when all other scientists gave up, Vita was the last scientist standing, fighting for her life. But something was wrong. She had a bit too much determination. Turns out, when the scientist told her that we should give up and find a new planet because this one was a lost cause, something broke inside of her, and she went mad. Vita calmly suggested that they just dump the whole Sea of Quanta on the Abyss. The scientists called her mad, but she simply didn't care about anything anymore. Vita ended up killing 12 billion people that day. Her response? She didn't care. She was just lucky to be alive. But you have to ask yourself, if the Honkai thrives off humanity, but the Honkai stopped attacking Venus even though Vita was still alive, is she even a human anymore? After that whole debacle, Vita decided to give up everything about herself, including her name and her humanity. From then on, she went by Saw and made it her life goal to become a goddess. Everyone knows the first step after abandoning humanity is returning to monkey, but for her, the first step was to gain power. The best way to do this is to go down into the Sea of Quanta and gain power from its energy, because the tsunami worked so well that she just couldn't resist getting that kind of power for herself, right? Saw decides to destroy bubble universes as well because that also gives her energy. More on how she does this later. She needs this energy to rebuild the entire civilization of Purusha. How does she do that? Saw equipped someone called the Star Traveler to scope out the universe and see where she would put the new civilization, the new planet. While that was happening, Saw spent years and years meditating and gathering energy from the Sea of Quanta and destroying bubble universes until she was able to make clones of herself. We are not exactly sure how many clones she made, but we do know of 8 of them for now. We'll get back to these 7 later. This one was tasked to patrol, clean, and observe the bubble universes. The way Saw destroys bubble universes is through humans' wishes. Saw understands human nature extremely well. After all, she saw human nature play out during her time on Purusha, and that nature prevented them from quote-unquote saving the planet. She makes these wishes come true, and they eventually bring out the destruction of the bubble universe. The clone patrols and observes these universes to make sure that the slow process of the destruction is running smoothly. The clone is used as a toy to make Saw's job easier while Saw continues to meditate and expand. This clone ends up taking Saw's original name, so from now on I'm going to call her Vita. As Saw continues to expand, her consciousness is submerged in the sea more and more, causing her to forget more and more of her humanity and her previous life on Venus. Keep this in the back of your mind while you're watching the rest of this video. 2,000 plus years go by, and Saw decides to check on the Star Traveler. Turns out, Saw did get results, but not the ones she was expecting. See, Saw's original plan was to go outside the solar system to get as far away from the cocoon of finality as possible. But that didn't end up happening, because the Star Traveler ran into the intertidal zones. In Honkai, the intertidal zones are basically the confines of the solar system. Saw settled to place her civilization at the very edge of the solar system. This hiccup proved to be in Saw's favor, because she realized she can also take energy from the intertidal zones. So now, she has 3 ways to gather energy, and she's expanding faster than ever before. Over the years, Vita created every piece of artificial life that you see on the planet. Vita named Saw's new civilization Phosphorus. Fun fact, Phosphorus is the name of the god Venus in Roman mythology. But once she showed Saw made it clear that she did not care about any of it. You see, Saw only needed 2 things for the civilization to work. Some form of law and rules, and these seeds that Saw keeps mentioning. Luckily, Saw's about to kill 2 birds with 1 stone thanks to one coincidental crash landing. The 13 Flame Chasers were the most important people of the previous era. They came up with Project SAVE, or Project SAVE, which consisted of 4 subplans that would ensure survival of the current era. One of these projects was Project Ark. Led by Gricio, this project was started to find other habitable places to live using a spaceship called the Ark. One day, they sent Gricio out into space for this project. The problem with that is it was over 10,000 year journey, and if you can imagine 10,000 plus years alone on a spaceship with absolutely 0 human interaction, the loneliness gets extremely harrowing. After years and years of not finding a new planet, she made up a new friend in her head called Marvin, and I guess she started talking to Marvin more than she was paying attention to where she was going. The Ark ended up wandering all the way to the edge of the solar system and ended up crash landing on Phosphorus. Back to these 2, as soon as they heard this ship crash landed on their planet, Saw and Vita immediately went into action. Gricio was easily dealt with by Saw, ambushing her and putting her in a slumber that would end up lasting over 14,000 years. Once Gricio was dealt with, Saw became really interested in her color ability. Thus, she wanted to do the same thing and assign emotion and morality to abstract things the same way as you would mix colors. That is when Saw noticed 7 different colored jars on the shelves in Gricio's room. Red, blue, yellow, orange, green, cyan, and indigo. Saw got inspiration from this, told her idea to Vita, and out came the seeds. These seeds are known as the 7 Little Vitas, or more commonly, the representatives. They are distinguished by color. Each color has a different responsibility, and they are meant to be flawless beings that will guide and assist humanity to create the sort of perfect world, and they run the city because of course Saw advocates for child labor. This way, Saw can continue meditating in the sea without moving an inch. So Saw fulfilled one of the 2 requirements she needed. But what about the rules? It is never stated explicitly in the story how she found these rules in the Ark as well as the seeds. However, what most likely happened is Saw found this tape recording. This tape contains a conversation between Gricio and Marvin, and for simplicity's sake we'll just say a conversation with herself because that's basically what it is. Gricio talks about a planet that she is drawing on her canvas. Gricio explains that this planet will be completely peaceful, unlike Earth. There will be animals and a permanently blue sky, but no humans. If there were, humanity's disgusting colors would start to fill the planet. Gricio concludes by stating that it would be nice if there would be a planet like this in the galaxy. Whoa! Wait a minute. It would be nice? That sounds like a wish, Gricio. Be careful what you wish for. This lines up with what we see in chapter 40, where everything is completely peaceful until PHOSPHORUS comes along, PHOSPHORUS being the first ever human to set foot on the planet since everyone else is Purushian. Honkai comes as soon as PHOSPHORUS does, throwing the world in peril. So Saw now has both the seeds and the rules on this planet. What does she do next? Well, nothing. Everything she needed was acquired, and now she can sit back and relax. Okay, you already know that's a lie, so let's continue with what actually happened. I already told you that Saw wanted these kids to be flawless, and to ensure that every seed was doing their proper job, she made Vita check in on them every now and then. During this, Saw would practically breathe down Vita's neck, telling Vita where they are and what to do once Vita spots them. Vita would ask them what they have been doing, and they would tell Vita exactly that. And since Saw has become goddess of this land and has tabs on everything, this would indirectly tell Saw what the representatives have been doing. Once Vita's done, she would go back to Saw to fulfill one of her other countless demands. However, due to these visits from Vita, something would happen that would end up being Saw's worst nightmare. The representatives would get attached.
Oh! Ew! Dude! What the fuck?
The representatives would start to ask how long she's staying, start calling her Miss Vita, get overly giddy when she returns, and ask her to stay for longer. Even worse, Miss Vita was starting to show signs of attachment as well. Luckily, Saw could take care of this easily. Every time the Vitas wanted her to stay longer, or Miss Vita would spend any extra amount of time with them than she needed to, Saw would simply teleport Vita away and take her back to the Sieve Quanta every single time. This would prevent Miss Vita from developing further attachment because, after all, checking out the seeds has and will always be strictly business. Saw would go on to incorporate a time loop system into the world. The time loop would consist of everything being great in the beginning, but eventually, during the pursuit of technological advancement by a Purushian or by just some random circumstance, something would go wrong and it would trigger this catastrophic event. This would go the representatives to unleash the artifact shortly after everyone would die and the loop would start again. For context, what is this artifact? The artifact is said to be something that the representatives would only use if stuff really starts to go wrong in the civilization. It is said to solve every problem in a flash and everything would be fine again. That seems great, right? So why does everyone die shortly after the artifact is activated? That's because I lied. This is in fact not what the artifact does. But the lie I just told was the lie that Saw implemented into the representatives' heads. This is all part of her plan to make it seem like the artifact is this kind of savior. What it actually does is make things so much worse by unleashing a massive flood that I will call the mass extinction event. I call it that because no one survives. The flood always kills everyone, including the representatives, without fail every single time. Except for Vita, of course. Saw can't let her precious toy die. Vita would clean up everything after everyone would perish, pick up the remains of the representatives, bring them back to their birthing place, aka the Ark, rebuild them, reset their memories so they have no recollection of the horrors, send them back out, and the cycle would begin again. The initial disaster is different every time, but it always leads to the same outcome. I told you that she wanted these kids to be flawless, but what I didn't tell you was that she wanted to have everyone be flawless as well, and make this a planet that stands above the rest. So when someone makes a mistake or gets too curious, Saw does not like that and floods it in hopes that next time it will be better. It parallels the story in the Bible where God flooded the world because the world was too sinful, except in this story, there was no rainbow in the end. Saw wants a perfect world, and she will do anything to attain it. This is how Saw became the vindictive powerhouse that she is today. But no matter how powerful you think you are, all things eventually end. Okay, up to now, I've been very confident that I have been telling this story correctly, but this last portion is the one I'm very confused about, so if I make any mistakes, please correct me in the comments below. One day, the loop started as normal, but then quickly went awry when Fuhua teleported into Phosphorus. This totally ruined her plan, as this meant that Honkai would also come, and as we know, Honkai in the Cocoon of Finality is her worst nightmare, and she wanted to get as far away from it as possible. Even worse, Fuhua is a Honkai killing machine and kept the disaster at bay, and because of that, the representatives were not activating the artifact. Don't get me wrong, they still saw it as a problem, and they still saw it as an option, but since Fuhua was keeping it at bay, there's much less of a need to do so. So this loop has already gone sideways and failed. It got even more messy when someone named Moriarty escaped from his cage. Quick backstory on him: Vita found him in the Sea of Quanta one day. Moriarty begged her to save him, and she did, but locked him in a cage in a museum that she owned. Moriarty escaped. Moriarty caused all sorts of havoc, but actually worked in Saw's favor as he manipulated all the representatives to think that Fuhua is the big bad, and they activated the artifact. I guess Saw didn't think the flood was enough because this time, along with it, she also descended from the sky and was ready to give her divine judgment. She figured she could handle it. This was her worst mistake, however. Saw underestimated Fuhua and, most importantly, the representatives big time. When the representatives took a peek at Saw for the first time, they did not like what they saw, and so, long story short, the representatives took a huge gamble and gave all of their individual authorities to Fuhua. This allowed Fuhua to get up to where Saw is in the sky and beat the crap out of her. Fuhua really weakened Saw, but didn't actually kill her, because as far as we know, mortals cannot kill divine beings. But don't worry, we've got our own divine being to teach Saw a lesson. Kiana did the final blow, and at the very end, Saw sunk back into the Sea of Quanta and retreated, never to be seen again. Oh, and Vita took her powers and became a god. The end. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I know it was a long one. I wanted to get everything 100% correct, but there might be some misconceptions here or there, so again, feel free to explain what I missed in the comment section. Big thank you to Reddit for helping me at least clear my confusion a little bit. There is another character that I intentionally left out in this story for two reasons. One, this character is only loosely connected to Saw at the very beginning of her past, and then becomes completely unrelated as Saw's journey continues. And two, this character actually connects to another huge story like this one that I will cover in another video. If you like to know how the information in this video pertains to part 2, click the video in the middle of the screen whenever it pops pops up. If you'd like to see the theories I have on part 2 so far, click the eye in the top right corner. Like and subscribe for more theories and videos like this one. See you next time.